10 metres along what I assume is solid ground at the beginning of the line, through the centre of the feature here. Now I'm standing in the bottom of it. So the assumption is that there's weaker ground under here, possibly a void of greater depth, and the ground is slowly sinking into it.
Dave is essentially performing an X-ray to find out if this is just a dip in the land or whether an underground cavern is forming.
I think it's important to do these tests because we can identify areas which are likely to undergo collapse, and the civil engineering companies can mitigate that, and they can put the correct foundations in for rebuildings to ensure that they're safe.
Dave will continue to monitor the area for signs of movement, but it's too low. With the suspected leak fixed, it was time to plug the hole.
Putting down a large block of concrete to remediate the ground.
The best solution is to fill the sinkhole with reinforced concrete. It seems simple enough, but it actually can compensate.
With engineering mishaps, sometimes the solution needs to be simple and robust. But when it comes to sinkholes, the real key is knowing exactly what lies beneath.
So the residents of beautiful Ripon are safe for now. I just hope those underground caverns stay exactly where they should be. Underground.
Coming up in our global hunt for the greatest engineering catastrophes, a California dam on the brink of disaster.
I tell my wife and kids we need to get on the room right now.
A Scottish landmark that risked becoming a crossing calamity.
The lifespan of the bridge was a serious concern.
And in England, a blazing end to the year.
Very quickly got serious.
With big builds, even the smallest mistake can be a huge disaster. From miscalculations to misunderstandings. These are the engineering catastrophes that only an expert can hope to fix. Our first construction calamity is in California, an engineering disaster that threatened to wipe whole cities off the map.
It was panic. People were panicking.
As disaster loomed, 180,000 residents along the Feather River were ordered to evacuate.
These people could have been less than an hour from annihilation.
California is known for its endless sunshine and more than 800 miles of coastline. Despite being right on the Pacific Ocean, it has a long history of massive water shortages. In the 1960s, work began on a solution near the small town of Oregon.
Most people have never even heard of Oregon, but it's actually home to one of the largest infrastructure projects in U.S. history.
Completed in 1968, the 770-foot-high Oregon Dam across the Feather River is, to this day, the tallest dam in America. Built from 155 million tons of mud and earth, the dam created Lake Oregon, storing more than 1 trillion gallons of water.
The dam is vital, supplying farms, cities, and towns throughout the state of California.
But as with every dam, if water levels get too high behind it, there's a risk of damage or even catastrophic collapse, which could lead to massive flooding down the Feather River. Not only a threat to the nearby town of Oregon, but thousands of people living downriver towards the San Francisco Bay. So, the Oregon Dam has a safety valve in the form of 2 spillways.
When the water reaches a certain height, the water flows down these spillways, so the reservoir doesn't overflow.
The main spillway is a concrete chute the width of the 12-lane highway. When levels in Lake Oregon are high, control gates are opened and water is released, flowing 3,000 feet down to the Feather River. As a failsafe, there is a secondary emergency spillway beside the chute, a fixed ridge over which water would naturally spill if levels ever topped 900 feet before rolling down the hill to the river.
The spillway is a bit of an exaggeration. The second one is basically the hillside.
The dam functioned as planned for nearly 50 years, not only stockpiling fresh water, but preventing flooding and generating electricity too. But in 2017, Northern California experienced its wettest winter in more than a century. Lake Oroville was running at 151% of normal capacity. Journalist Risa Johnson heard rumors that all was not well with the dam.
On February 7th, we got a tip that there was something going on with Oroville Dam. Someone said that they might have seen a piece of concrete fly, so we thought something was up.
The main spillway was open, but was not only struggling to cope with the flow, it was starting to break apart.
The force of the water being released from the dam broke a huge hole in the concrete spillway.
The main spillway was in serious trouble. Local pilot Gonzalo Curiel filmed the disaster unfolding from his light aircraft.
Most people in town, most people anywhere couldn't see the dam. I was fortunate enough because I am a pilot and I do have an airplane. I could go up at any time and see it and get photographs and videos of it. The main spillway being blown out, to see it from the air was spectacular, you know, in a sense, but it was also scary because we didn't know what was going to happen.
There was a lot of erosion going around the sides, and there was a lot of mud in the water, and it looked really bad.
Residents down the Feather River, like Genoa Wilder, were also getting nervous.
We've noticed chunks, like big rocks, chunks of cement flying down with the water. And so that was the first, it was being shared all over Facebook, people were commenting, and that was the first sign that something was wrong.
Engineers were forced to slow the flow down the damaged main spillway. But the storm waters kept coming. Unable to drain quickly enough, the lake kept rising and was rapidly approaching the 900-foot maximum.
Seeing the storms coming in and how much water was coming into the lake and seeing how fast it was accumulating, that's when I started to get worried.
On Saturday, February 11, 2017, for the first time in the dam's history, water started spilling over the lip of the emergency spillway.
The emergency spillway had never been used before. This was uncharted territory.
With the main spillway struggling, the second emergency spillway was the only hope for the dam to remain intact. But as the water flowed down the hillside, mud and rocks were also being washed down to the Feather River. By Sunday, the cascading water and debris had destroyed the road below. But much worse, the hillside was eroding fast. The emergency failsafe spillway was failing. If the emergency spillway suffered a total failure, experts predicted a 30-foot high wall of water would hurtle down the Feather River. The authorities were forced to order a mass evacuation of more than 180,000 people living downstream.
I think it was about 3 o'clock. People got that emergency 1 hour. You have 1 hour to get out emergency evacuation order.
That's going to fix this for real. And they said, yes, it's for real.
Sounds like something out of a movie. 180,000 people were literally told to drop everything and flee for their lives.
In 2017, in California, the Oroville Dam was in trouble, with its emergency release spillway struggling with excessive amounts of water from recent storms. 180,000 people in its path were given less than an hour to evacuate.
If it did actually fail and flood this area, those people would have been
continued to gush down the hillside, engineers tried to reduce levels in Lake Oroville. The damaged primary spillway worked overtime. Gradually, the flow down the emergency spillway slowed, and hour by hour, the lake surface began to fall. 2 days later, the evacuation order was downgraded, and shaken residents were allowed to return to their homes. This close call highlighted two main engineering issues from the original construction phase. First, geological studies pointed at the hillside that the spillways were built on. In places, the rock was too weak to support the constant battering by water. As geologist Eldridge Moores demonstrates,
I can actually pick a piece off of this outcrop right here, and I can roll it around with my fingers, and I can make the rocks, disintegrate. The problem is the emergency spillway eroded in places that's as much as 20 to 25 feet deep in a week.
geology wasn't the only problem. A forensic report found that a key cause of the main spillway breaking up was the concrete being too thin around drains in the chute.
The concrete in the main spillway was only 7 inches thick, about 17 centimeters. It was no match for the huge amount of water pouring into the reservoir above.
All told, the spillways suffered from several faults, from poor quality bedrock beneath to multiple cracks in the chute, which allowed water to flow underneath and cause yet more damage. With the immediate crisis over, engineers went to work on a solution. To create a solid foundation for the primary spillway, the weak rock beneath it was sprayed with liquid mortar, while thicker, stronger concrete walls were added. The eroded hillside of the emergency spillway next door was reinforced with a very different solution. A so-called cutoff wall dug into the slope. Holes were drilled deep into the solid bedrock, then filled with concrete, creating a robust terrace wall designed to both strengthen the hillside and slow the flow of water. Estimates